In 1919, he hit 29 home runs and was sold to the New York Yankees.
A three-run home run for Buckington. The Yankees now lead it by a score of 3-2.
Bill Lee is now going over to a couple of the Yankees, and there they go again.
One hits it to deep left. That might send the Yankees to the World Series.
Varitek and A-Rod going at it. Roberts is going. Posada's throw. Roberts safe.
And what can I say? Just tip my hat and call the Yankees my daddies.
Welcome to Fanbase, a deep dive into the greatest non-rivalry in sports, episode 110. John Senecal here with Brian Shackman. And, of course, we're at the beginning of the season. Plenty of interesting things to look at. Obviously, the first couple weeks don't dictate everything, but some trends have clearly emerged. And I guess I want to start with, regardless of when people listen to the show, whether Tampa's still undefeated or not, it doesn't matter. It somehow, for the first time, is Tampa built to win it all, or are they just, again, built for the regular season and it's cute and everything's nice and they make the playoffs, but they don't go anywhere? Or are they kind of scaring you?
Well, you look at Tampa Bay, and the first thing everyone's going to say is, well, they haven't played anybody, their schedule, right? But you still got to win the games.
Yes.
They played, Washington, Oakland, Boston, and Detroit, right? They're playing
Some bad teams,
right? But you still got to win the games. So you got to look at what they're doing. And, what they're doing is they're hitting and they're pitching. They're doing exactly what a winning team does. And then you find, the players on the team, Wander Franco, you've been hearing this guy's name, you feel like, for 4 or 5 years, right?
What is he, 23?
He just turned 22.
Yeah. That's
last
crazy.
month. Right? So he hasn't even had a legit overall full season of Major League Baseball, because if you remember, he was in the question for Rookie of the Year, and everyone was like, what do you mean Rookie of the Year? The dude had 220 at bats or something that. Right. And now he's finally healthy because he was hurt last year and he's raking. And Randy Arozarena is, of course, doing Randy Arozarena things, what he always does, but and
a bunch of no-namers.
And you can't really name any of their pitchers. Zach Eflin was their big offseason signing. He's the highest paid player on their team, and he was a middle reliever for the Phillies. And now he's one of their starters.
So here's a question I have, and we'll get to the Yankees and Franchi in a second, because Chaim Bloom was hired by the Red Sox to build a system that could compete every year at a respectable budget. The budget for the Red Sox is still kind of not low, and they stink. And the Tampa is still great without him. So the question is Tampa still, enjoying the success that Chaim Bloom helped build, or did Chaim Bloom, benefit from a great organizational philosophy? Because if the Red Sox aren't winning 90 games a year starting, I don't know, in 2 years. I mean, right now the Red Sox you hope Casas works out, you hope Yoshida works out, and then you have Devers. And those are the only 3 pillars you're building on right now. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a couple of years, to be honest, before you even think about signing people on free agency to complement, until you have enough to complement. So my question is, how does this make Chaim Bloom look, that Tampa's this good and Boston's this bad?
Well, I mean, honestly, I think Tampa being as good as they are, I think probably goes back to more Andrew Friedman when he was with them, and then he left and went to L.A., to the Dodgers. I don't think it's so much Chaim Bloom. I think Chaim Bloom's very overrated. I mean, he doesn't really have he's like the antithesis of the background. He doesn't have any sports background. He doesn't have any business background. He was a literature major, or like Latin major or something in college. It was
He's wicked smart, though.
Well, yeah, he's wicked smart, but that doesn't mean he knows how to run a baseball team.
No,
he
I
could
get
have been on a good team in the front office. I'm just thinking he's a little overrated, and he probably isn't as advertised, to be honest with you.
So that poses that's trouble. That's trouble for the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, still, you're going to have to spend money to compete, right? In the Braves, I mean, not the Braves, the Rays are doing their competing on grabbing a bunch of guys that are on a couple-year deals. The only guy that's got a big contract is Wander. He's the only guy that's got wrapped up for 10 years.
Right.
But they're also getting guys that aren't the rookies. They're the guys that have been in the league for 4 or 5 years that have developed in the league, right? They haven't come right out and they're out of the system or whatever. They're getting these guys that were 30th round draft picks in 5-6 years ago or 7 years ago, and that they're finally at the age 27, 28, 29, 30 are really starting to click as pitchers and they're getting it done. Their pitching staff is scary, especially the way they run it. It's very scary.
All right, he's John Senecal. I'm Brian Shackman. This is Fanbase, a deep dive into the greatest rivalry in sports, episode 110. So let's get to. I mean, the Red Sox. They're probably going to be a last place team. It's difficult to fathom, what they're going to do. That's exciting. It's obvious that Devers, even when he's not protected in the lineup, can still hit. So let's talk about the Yankees. A decent start, but I would already pay attention to being 3, 4, 5 games back, and so you look at it, they're on track to win 90 plus, and they'll make the playoffs. That's not a concern. What are your before I go to Franchi? What are your early thoughts on the team?
I'm happy because if you look at their record, they would be in first place in any division in baseball.
That's correct.
If not, I think only one they would be like a game back as we stand now. So I am not concerned about that. What I am concerned about is, again, the AL East is scary, but the Yankees in general, I like what I'm seeing. I'm kind of actually happy that Donaldson's out of the lineup. I think that actually helps them. Very convenient injury. Who knows what's going to happen with Hicks? I'm scared about the bullpen. I mean, Clay Holmes he just scares the hell out of me to close out games. He really does. And what makes me even more nervous is that if he can't do it, and he showed that last year, he fell apart, and they had to go with bullpen by committee. But that changes the whole scope of everything. Like when you have to rely on Wandy or Loaizaga to close your game, the dominoes fall backwards, and you don't want that to happen.
No, there's no doubt. I mean, I look offensively. I mean, there's a couple things. We've had fun on our text thread with producer Matt Sorois, who's often on the program and helps produce it. Franchi Cordero coming out and basically, what did he equal last year's total? Took
him like 199 at bats, hit 4 home runs last season with the Sox, and he did it in like 26 at bats.
It's incredible.
I mean, it's Kevin Moss kind of stuff, right? The baby bomber kind of stuff. But Franchi, he's 28 years old. He's been around. I think this is like his 4th team or 4th or 5th team.
He's San Diego, KC, Boston, and now New York.
Yeah. So, the talk on him is the dude has crazy power, crazy pop. It's just a matter of can he hit the off speed. It's like Serrano.
Yeah, he's Pedro Serrano. Well, my point with Franchi, I think Franchi will end up in AAA by June.
They're going to have a big question to figure out, right? If Franchi is still hitting and Harrison Bader comes back, and Harrison Bader's probably not that far away. I'm guessing maybe 2 weeks at the most. And no one's even talked about him, right? And if he comes back, he's a big piece of the puzzle to solve. But then you got to think, what am I going to do with Chicks? Yeah. What am I going to do with Cordero? What happens with Cabrera? Because he's actually, he's the wrench. And he's playing good. Maybe Volpe's the odd man out and has to go back down to AAA.
So it's really interesting you say that. I feel like Cordero, the more he plays, the better chance he has of doing well. But the at bats not be there, and the reason why I think I'm very confident, and I cheer for him. I have nothing against Franchi Cordero, but assuming he regresses back to the mean, like he goes back to being what he's always been so far, which is not doing what he's doing. Rizzo hasn't done a whole lot, in terms of power numbers, so he'll perk up. But I wanted to bring up Volpe because he's batting way under 200, and he's so young. And I think about the confidence and psychology. And this is why baseball is amazing to me, because it really is built on failure. Because not everyone. Almost everyone in the game struggles, especially when they're young. And so how you handle the struggle dictates how successful your career is going to be. And how you're managed dictates it too. So, I always go back to the old days with Pedroia when he first came up and he was terrible. And I was like, this guy's a total bust. He sucks. And other people said, just wait. And then he turns it around and he gets Rookie of the Year. But I was convinced that he was not going to do that. So what do you do with a guy who's so young, whose upside is considered so huge, who is really struggling?
So I think with Anthony Volpe's situation, that he was not expected at all to make the team going into the spring training this year. And he starred and he made the team. So I think, as crazy as it sounds, I think in a way that almost helps him if they send him back down, because it was almost like, okay, kid, you really weren't supposed to be on this team. You got hot. right? You
And
got
so
hot
now you
against probably not the best pitchers to face, and you made the team. So, don't really look at it that you can't compete at this level. Look at it that you just need some more time, and you're going to figure it out. And he will, because he's super young still. And like I said, like you said, Pedroia did it, Trout did it. I mean, the list is a laundry list long, but if a guy that can come back and win 3 MVPs did it, I think anyone can do it.
Well, I think it's an interesting approach because your message sort of is, okay, you belong, but this is what you got to work on. Go down and work on it. And because I would worry about a 21-year-old or whatever kid's confidence getting shot and not recovering.
Yeah, I don't think he has the makeup of that. I really don't. I don't think he has the mental makeup of that, and I think he would understand. I don't think he's at the end of his leash yet. I mean, we haven't got out of April yet. But under 200, and if you're not performing in the situations that you're needed to perform in, right? I mean, there's one thing to hit a triple and do this and that here and there, but if you're playing for the Yankees, the expectation is if there's guys on base, you're gonna get a hit, right? And if you're not doing that, eventually the Boo Birds are gonna come out. So, do you want it to get to the point where the Boo Birds are sending them down, or do you have to figure it out yourself and do what you got to do?
I mean, as of Thursday, he has one extra base hit. I would say, then what is your sample size, John? Where you give him 25 games?
I would say the month of April is the whole month would be a good look.
But I like what you said. I mean, because if you can find a way to spin it in a way that truly and authentically and sincerely makes sense.
And listen, he's young too, right? He's not 26. He's not 27.
No, I know. That's my point. Is that ultimately, but maybe he thought that he's going to stay and he's off to a Hall of Fame career, and now he's going to be back on a bus. So I'm just curious about the impact of that. Now, today's athlete is much softer than it used to be, but it should be something that's overcomable. I was curious if you thought how gently he should be handled, and you think that sending him down would be a good thing. So that's the takeaway.
Yep. All
right. So listen, when it comes to other elements of what's going on, before we get to expansion, we already have a half a dozen teams reacting to the shorter games by extending beer sales to the 8th inning. I find it really funny, but they should. Like, what's the big deal? Like in this era of public transportation and Uber, the point of closing beer sales in the 7th was so people didn't drink and drive, or people didn't get too drunk to fight. Like, what was the original point?
Maybe they didn't want to have them in line waiting and missing the end of the game.
That's not it. That's definitely not it.
I just don't see that. Like, by the 7th inning, it's like, all right, everyone's going to be fine now to make it home. Like, we stopped at the 7th inning. I mean, meanwhile, there's a beer snake in the outfield, 14 rows deep.
Right. Everyone's going to get their max at the 7th inning so they can have a couple.
But it's great, though. I mean, like we talked about this. Like, baseball is adapting, right? It's not just about the pitch clock and what's going on the field. It's happening in the stands, in the stadium. The fans are getting involved, counting the pitch clock down. The beer sales are changing times. Like, we talked about this already. Everything's going to have to adapt.
Yeah, it's like artificial intelligence. It's sort of taking the information and doing it in real time. But I think that
the Brewers the first one that did it, right? It had to have been. It had to have been the Brewers. I mean, if it wasn't the Brewers, who was it going to be?
Yeah. I mean, I think
Rockies or something, of course.
And the Red Sox should I'm sure they'll follow suit because they see how much fewer fans, the impact on the overall revenue, and they must be kind of freaking out. But I pointed this out on my regular show. Listen, I really like Sam Kennedy personally. I think he's a really good guy, and the Red Sox have been helpful to me in a lot of different ways. But I have to say, being in last place and then buying the Pittsburgh Penguins and then missing the playoffs for the first time in like 16 or 17 years was
not a good look.
No, it's not a good look at all. And you just wonder. And I hate to say I'm not rooting against anybody, but I think that humility would go a long way to helping the Red Sox, because right now, I don't want to engage the team that much because they're not even being humble about it. Like, they should be really humble about what's going on, and they think the fans are just going to stick around forever, and I'm telling you, they've already not. I mean, the Bruins and the Celtics are very good, and the Red Sox are just not that relevant. And
maybe they can move them to Salt Lake City.
No, so let's talk about it. I didn't know if you want to talk about the Astros first or expansion, but let's talk about expansion. I don't want more teams in baseball. And I know
Well, it would be 32 teams if you expand
by 2.
by 2.
Yes.
That would be the plan, but you have to wait until find out what happens at Tampa and Oakland.
Right. So I guess if you don't have 30 healthy franchises, why go to 32? And you know how I feel about Florida baseball. I don't think Miami and Tampa should have teams. I just don't. I think the culture of spring training it's just like why spend X amount of dollars when you can see the same.
We know
players?
Miami is not going anywhere because they got a nice shiny
No,
new
I get it. They
stadium.
got a new stadium, but I would have been totally against that. I would have
Yeah.
moved them too. So the question is, I mean, Oakland, they're going to move to.
Yeah, you got
Vegas.
basically 4 places, right? You got Las Vegas, you got Nashville, you got Portland, and now you got Salt Lake City.
Right.
And the thought is that Oakland's gone.
They're going to Vegas.
They're going to go to Vegas. And now the big question mark, other than that, if that happens, is Tampa. Now, there's talk that Tampa was going to build a new stadium. I don't think that's going to happen. Now, does Tampa move? That would be the next logical choice, right? So you got to figure out. Manfred has already said that nothing's going to happen until those 2 shoes drop. So I
Right.
would think Oakland drops first, but they don't have a stadium yet for them there. They could play in the AAA park there for
Well, let's
now.
just assume, for argument's sake, that's going to happen, right? Let's just assume Oakland's going to Vegas,
And that's going
which
to be
makes a ton
within
of
the
sense.
next. That would happen the earliest, probably 4 years. You could get a new stadium built and flipped.
Right. So then the question I have to you is, if Tampa were to move, which city do you think deserves it?
Well, the people that have been the city that's been around the longest in the talk
Is
has been
Nashville.
Portland.
Portland, yeah.
Because that's where the Expos, I guess, we're first going to go. But Nashville has been the hottest in the last, I'd say, probably 6 to 8 years. Really hot in the last 3 years.
Are the Tennessee Titans in Nashville?
Yeah,
Okay,
right
so
across
they
the
have,
river. And they're supposed to be, I think they're going to be talking about building a new stadium for them, too.
But so they have football.
And AAA baseball,
Okay.
which was right. I don't know if it's AAA.
And they have the
anymore. It might be
NHL.
AA.
They have the NHL.
NHL, right, which is right downtown. The baseball is just a little bit south of the city, and then the football stadium is just over the river. Like you walk across a pedestrian bridge to get to it. So it's all accessible from downtown.
I
But
think Nashville would be way better than Portland.
yeah, so Nashville obviously is. I mean, that's like the hippest city, one of the hippest cities in the country. But also now Salt Lake City is one of the fastest growing.
It's the least hippest.
Yeah, at least hippest. But my bet would be Nashville, and then I would think the Rays could move there because you might be able to suck some fan base as much as you would suck some Rays fan base.
Because
if
it's
there's
not as far.
I mean, you're always going to be competing with Atlanta, no matter what in the South, no matter where you are, because they're the institution for baseball in the South.
Yeah.
Other than the Astros, but we don't want to talk about them. Well, we can talk about them.
We're going to
They're
talk about them briefly.
cheaters.
So Nashville will be your top choice.
That's my choice. Yeah.
Well, you like country music, so you go down
Well,
there. And
listen,
visit.
I said to my wife, I said, if Nashville gets a team, because she can work anywhere, we're gone. And we're close enough to having the kids out of the roost that you figure if it happens, it's going to happen probably 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
That's a perfect mark, and I'm
I've-
gone.
Yeah,
I'm
I've
getting
often
season
said,
tickets of some sort, and I'm
it's
plonking
not
myself there.
It's not like I want to move to Kansas City, but there's something to be said that to go to a place that has a major league team where you could pay basically half of what we pay
Yeah.
for Red Sox and Yankees. And you don't even have to go all the time. You can go for 4 or 5 innings. You
Yeah.
can go have your lunch on a break from your job at TJ Maxx or whatever.
My wife was on a business trip a few years back and went to a game in Kansas City. And I can't remember who they were playing, but she got there 5 minutes before the game, drove up like she was parking at Walmart on a Wednesday. And they walked for like $5, walked right in, watched the game, and walked right out, and we're gone. Now, I mean, like you said, you go to Boston, you're so damn stressed out by the time you walk into the game, unless you live in the city, or you go to New York.
You pay $35 to park.
And then just getting there is a whole thing.
Yep.
It's a whole thing. It's a whole to do. And by the time you get in there, you're ready to strangle somebody. And now you got to sit down and watch
That's
baseball.
John Senecal. He's ready
Come
to
on,
strangle
kids,
somebody.
let's get some ice cream.
He's so stressed. I've seen him stressed as he could see
But it's
smoke
true, though.
coming out of
Like
his
what
ears.
you say is true because
Yes,
there's something to
yes.
be said about rolling up to a baseball game
Yes.
and just having a peaceful experience and not going through all that
But
rigmarole.
it's also, I will acknowledge, I totally agree with you, but I will acknowledge the trade-off, which is you go to Fenway even when it's not full, the in-game experience
Atmosphere.
is better.
Atmosphere,
And,
100%.
You're sitting there sprawled across 4 seats because no one's with you in
Yeah.
Kansas City. It's different. But if you want to just watch baseball and see guys up close and have, like you said,
That's
just
where
a
it's
good,
at.
yeah, totally. I 100% agree. John Senecal, Brian Shackman, your fan base, a deep dive into the greatest rivalry in sports. The last item we just want to touch on that Evan Gaddis acknowledging in a thread someone,
he was doing like a Twitter talk with people.
He was on the Astros in what is it,
2017.
17, yeah. And so he was basically asked when did he hit a big home run? Did he hit a big home run? Or was it a big hit
in the 4th inning of Game 7?
Right, and he was asked if he knew it was coming, and he said yes. And which at this point isn't surprising, but it's one of those things where to get the verbal confirmation, even if the source is incredible, let's just be honest, you can criticize or talk about Evan Gattis and what kind of guy he is and his behavior, this and that. Jose Canseco was not a credible guy in so many ways, but he told the truth about steroids. So just because Gattis might not be like 100% perfect person or whatever doesn't mean he's not being completely honest and forthright.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why he would make that up either. I mean, it's just another reassurance of what we knew, but it's when you boil it down to actual pitches and actual names, it in a way it changes things, because then you can look at it and be like, oh, well, yeah, we knew they knew what was coming, but yeah, he knew exactly on that exact pitch. Like, because there was times when they were still cheating, they didn't know 100% what was coming.
Right.
So just to look at it and be like, that son of a bitch, as a Yankees fan, like,
oh, you got stolen. You and the Dodgers have a lot to, and for me, it's like
just to make the World Series alone. Like, obviously, the Yankees, like, World Series or nothing, right? But just as a fan to get there and to have that, to watch it and still have,
well, let's get back to the baseball for a second, because even if you know what's coming, you still got to hit it, right? And let's just be honest about that. It is a huge advantage. There's no doubt about it. I would still like having the faith that the info you're getting is legit, and then 100% believe it in real time, and then like, okay, a fastball, it's going to be a fastball.
It's
and then
still
like
a fast decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's really incredible. And then to believe it, like for me, it would be like, well, what if it isn't? And then I'm going to lose a strike or whatever. And so there's elements to it that I find, intellectually fascinating, but it just adds to, like, how do you process? Same with the, 1919, Black Sox or whatever. How do you process if it's your team, how you were wronged? And I still can't, the Red Sox were also beaten that year, but I don't think they were a World Series team. But the Yankees and the Dodgers, how do you ultimately process the degree with which you were wronged?
Real quick, could you imagine sitting in the stands and watching the Black Sox play and just being like, dude,
what's going on?
Like, how can everyone not see how blatantly, like, bad, like, if it's any recollection of what the movies of this were like dudes are like literally like diving the other way and balls are hit at them and stuff. Like the Astros cheating is like on a crazy level. Like, you had to dissect that. Yeah. Like, you had to like boil that down. You had to have like someone finally crack that nut and be like, I can't handle this anymore. I got to come clean.
Right.
I got to say something. Like, for the Black Sox, everyone was probably sitting in the stadium like, come on, man. Yo, guy, how much money you got on this? Like, yelling up to the, like, I can't imagine like sitting there and watching that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, Shoeless Joe actually hit well in the series, but
like the only one in like that hit, according to like basically the whole story, right?
And it's a different era. I
don't think anyone's ever going to be over the fact that the Astros cheated. But the thing is it doesn't matter, because they still won the World Series. They still going to parade that damn championship around, especially after they won again last year.
Well, the last year's win
was their validation.
Was so important, because if they never had won another one, it would even be more an embarrassment. But if I were a Yankee fan and I really, really, really believed in my team, and there are fans who feel that way, I don't know how I would get over it.
Cheating sucks. Like, that kind of cheating sucks. Like, you'd rather just lose knowing that you lost. And
same with like steroids and other things. Like, how do you deal with it? Or in boxing, if someone was juicing and you got the crap beat out of you, like, I'm sitting here honestly in real time trying to think about how I would be able to move forward, and I'm not sure that I
mean, as fans, you sit there and you watch the people that throw their things to the TV when they lose the Super Bowl and they break and stuff. I mean, now it's almost like they want to be on social media, so they do it.
No, but I think even the pass interference non-call against the Saints with the Rams a couple years back. I'm like, how could you ever live that kind of crap down if you really care? And I only bring it up because I was listening to another sports radio personality talk about the Bruins, And you know, because the Bruins had to set records this season, and some people are like, well, what if they don't win the Stanley Cup? How do you process that if they have this historic season but don't win at all? And then, you know, one personality made the point, which I thought was really interesting, which was, if you're a season ticket holder, invest thousands of dollars, and you only lost 4 home games.
Yeah, that's a hell of a run.
How great a year did you have?
Yeah.
Like everything you invest in it was worth it. And so you can, it's okay if they don't win it all. It's not great, but I mean, it's understandable. You had so much joy during your regular year that it's okay. But in this case, I don't know if it's the same thing, and I don't think that it is, because it's not okay, because the Yankees expect to win it. They haven't won it in an inordinate amount of time with some very talented teams. I'm not a booer, but I would hate the Astros forever. I don't know if I could ever get over it.
No, I don't understand how players can like be on the field with them. Like, how do you stand at second base or like?
Unless they know they've cheated themselves in some way, right?
I don't know. It's just I would be irate, man. If I'm Aaron Judge and I'm sitting there, I would literally want to just like, especially the way they handled it. I want to choke Alex Bregman. You know, like I'd want to walk over and next time I play Detroit and smack AJ Hinch in the face.
Yeah. Hey, listen, wherever you follow us, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook, you know, if you got comments on this, I mean, it's just such a good topic to discuss. And make sure you listen, make sure you share. This is Fanbase, a deep dive into the greatest rivalry in sports.